r/AskReddit, what's the worst coworker you've ever worked with? My coworker likes to initiate conversations. Then does long pauses, where you go to say something back, then he cuts you off and keeps talking. He has entire conversations almost entirely by himself. He also likes to make changes to my paperwork before it's turned in. Ends up riddled with spelling mistakes, while he tries to make the content look smarter. Fortunately it's all electronically stamped with who made revisions. Worked with a girl who would sometimes just lay on the floor and play on her phone. She would routinely flip out about something her boyfriend did, and just start screaming curse words. Sometimes in front of customers. I had a manager once who dumped trash on my desk my third day there. She said it was to remind me that taking out the trash was part of my job. Fast food. Third shift. The only other employee stayed in the bathroom doing blow. Not necessarily a coworker, but my old supervisor literally told me not to think, even if it's wrong, that I do things her way, and not to ask questions, because I should already know what to do. I had just gotten the position. When I was an intern, there was this old shrew who would call people into her office. My cube shared a thin wall. Gossip, then call those people in, to tell them what was said, etc. She would try to frame people for shit she did wrong. She was so arrogant. And she refused to adapt to workforce modernization. Example, she refused to learn how to hyperlink in emails, documents, etc. A real ray of sunshine she was. My worst coworker was one I worked with when I was a cashier at Walmart. She approached me and asked me to cash out her paycheck. I was still new at the job and never got training on how to do that function. She was sympathetic, so she walked me through how to do it. Transaction over and done. I go on about my day. I get called back a couple of days later by my managers and they circled me in an office and accused me of stealing. After tears, videotapes, and telling them what happened, they told me that apparently this coworker of mine had stolen not only from me, but several other people that day as well. They just wanted to confirm I wasn't in on the deal. Fuck Walmart, and fuck that bitch for almost getting me arrested. Hired a cook on a good recommendation. He was just fine the first 2 weeks. Then I noticed food going missing. Then supplies started going missing. Then a customer told me that he had been adding auto 30% tips as food purchases. When I looked at the books, I saw that he had been adding 30% tips to all the credit card sales. And the cash rings were off from what should have been sold. I fired him that day. The next day he came in and apologized. Said he was on drugs and was going to rehab. I wished him well. Then next day he tried to break in after close and was caught. The hour manager at my last job had zero training, education or experience in hours. She was argumentative, passive-aggressive and incompetent. Toward the end she asked me, why are you being resistant and you're not being a team player, when I was advocating for client safety. I was the second person in less than a year to leave and hire an attorney. This guy named Daniel I used to work with at McDonald's in high school. He let everyone know he worked out and enjoyed being on the football team. He had this thing about taking 5 shits a day. He would walk by on his way back from the toilet, chest out, shoulders back, and triumphantly announce that's shit number 3. He creeped the fuck out of all the girls at work, and then it came out he had stalking and sexual assault charges pending outside work. Fired that day. I worked with a guy who couldn't learn new skills. When he started he had to learn new programs and processes. Just like anyone would at almost any job. He couldn't pick up on it, whether it was where to click in a software to get a certain result, or how to fill out a report. Everyone on my team took turns showing him the ropes and it never sunk in. I remember being so frustrated because he could not figure out how to minimize a window. Top right corner, click on the straight line. It took like 3 to 4 seconds for him to drag the mouse to the corner, and then he'd hover around it, but never on it. Super nice guy. But impossible to work and collaborate with on projects, because so much time was wasted. I work with this guy that tries to convert people to his religion every day. It's super annoying. I have a coworker who's very old-fashioned and strongly believes that males and females cannot be friends. Well, it just so happens that my manager and I A male and a female happened to get along quite well because of our similar ages and interests. She reported me to the other managers for it and accused me of sleeping with him. I worked with a guy that regularly Googled everyone we worked with. He knew information about the apartment we had just sold and told everyone at our department meeting how much we sold for. My old supervisor. She was that special brand of too nice. Laughing was her nervous tick, and oh boy, it was constant. She was incapable of being assertive, which is not the best quality for someone whose job is telling other people what to do. The best she could do was be passive-aggressively nice when she really needed something done, which just made everyone dislike her. I have several bad ones, but the one that drives me the most crazy is a lady who creates problems just so she can solve them. She takes a simple job, finds the one tiny issue, blows that up, and freaks everyone out, and then solves it so she can be the hero. Just take the 1 minute to fix the issue in the first place. It would save the literal hours she spends working everyone up so she can be their savior. I'm pretty cool about people all have their role to play, but one time we had a secretary that would microwave eggs and can tuna every morning in a bowl. Now, I'm not a violent person, but the smell generated from microwaved eggs and canned tuna is downright repulsive by anyone's standards. Back when I worked at a restaurant, I was friends with the bartender. Sure dude. Right up until they made him manager, and that small amount of power and increase in pressure made him so angry all the time. He screamed at me that I was shit at my job because I didn't do a thing that I've never been asked to do before. He made me miss my last bus so I couldn't get home. It was pitch black outside and I cried on the bench outside the restaurant. Worst working day and worst co-worker. It took me a long time to get over that and realize I wasn't a shit worker. He was just stressed and didn't know how to handle it, I suppose. A guy that was on the keto diet, it's all he'd ever talk about. He once overheard a conversation I was having with a colleague on a particularly stressful day. He interrupted us to suggest I give up carbs in order to reduce my stress levels. I worked with a teacher that sat at his desk the entire year. Kids walked in and out whenever they wanted to. They did practically no work. He told racist jokes and was terrible with the students. One day I was sitting in the teacher workroom and another teacher noticed a phone on the counter. She asked if it was mine. When I said no, we looked at the lock screen to see whose it might be. The picture on the lock screen was of someone's bare tits. A few minutes later the bad coworker walked in and picked it up. Needless to say, he was let go. This girl I work with is overly picky about stuff. Everything has to be her way or no way. She does everything louder to make it seem like she's working, but she's not actually getting anything done. She has been caught stealing from other servers several times, but we have no concrete proof. She accidentally takes people's tips. She's fucking hellacious. Fucking jammy. Her picture belonged next to asterisk PASSIVE-AGGRESSIVE asterisk in the dictionary. She knew how to stay on the good side of the boss, but treated most everyone else like dirt. She would intentionally ignore your attempts to communicate with her regarding important work matters, then turn around and claim you were the one being difficult. Whenever you pointed out one of her mistakes, however small, she would throw a temper tantrum like a little kid. Haven't worked with her for many years now, and I sincerely hope I can eventually forget what she looks like. I walked in on her spitting in my coffee. Had a supervisor that loved to chew ass and harass. You could make the most minor mistake, and she would tell it you. And if you asked to do something, or have her show you how to do a task, her excuse was go ask this person. They're better at it, or I'm kinda busy, followed by jumping on her social media. I worked in a place similar to YMCA. They hired a tramp/gym coach who was great at those things. But somewhere along the line she also picked up reception shifts. She was also dyslexic. This meant I would get emails I couldn't read with phone messages for obviously wrong names and phone numbers without enough digits, or when I called them turned out to be wrong numbers. The workplace was too scared to move her off reception in case it was discrimination. There was plenty of other work to be done. She didn't need to be fired or anything. So instead of taking a job that wasn't meant to be her job off her. The rest of us had to cop abuse from upset clients, because we weren't going to blame her mild disability for us not calling them back. I worked in a restaurant with a guy who claimed to have PTSD from tripping too hard on LSD. It was a busy place, around 400 to 500 plates a night with only 5 chefs. Every time his station got more than like 10 simultaneous tickets, he would run out the back, leaving me and the guy on the other side of him to do his job. Also, his PTSD was never medically confirmed, and we believed he just made it up. At my first ever job, I worked with a middle-aged guy who lived in his car, picked at his face constantly, and would always ask me and the other teenage employees if we needed a ride home from work. He gave off the creepiest vibe, and was eventually fired. This girl identified herself as a mermaid. Every time I would get mad at her, she would call me racist towards mermaids. She was completely serious about this. P.S. I have nothing against aquatic humanoids. This one in particular was a ding-dong. The boss who used to grab my ass. She knew I was married and not interested, but kept doing it. I finally went 2 hours, but it was a small company and they were close friends. My workload then grew, and she got more aggressive. She told me that no one would believe man was the victim. And everything I looked into said I didn't have a lot of hope. I ended up quitting the job, and not finding anything new for 6 months. It was expensive. I told my parents that I got fired, because that was strangely less humiliating than admitting I was a victim. Had a coworker who always gossiped about others, and would say horrible things about everyone in the office. It created a super toxic culture, and caused many people to leave. Not because they didn't like the work, they just hated the culture. This was a tough one, because when you work in retail long enough, you will hate a lot of people. My first job in high school had this gremlin who thought she was a shit, because she was a varsity cheerleader. She had the worst temper I have ever seen. It was like anger was the only emotion she could feel. She appeared to only be capable of communicating through yelling, insulting, and berating everyone. Every shift with her was just watching her go through an 8-hour-long tantrum. I wouldn't be surprised if she was still a little fucking gremlin. My current coworker. He loves to watch my work, track my tickets, wants in on all my meetings, not to be helpful, but to insert himself into everything I do. If I don't jump on something in 1 minute, he will ask if I missed the ML or the ticket or the request. Then he plays 20 questions with me like I report to him or something. The worst part is he isn't mean about it. So I can't say something to him, because he just says we are a team and work together, so he is helping. I think he is just passive aggressive and just really good at it. Over time it just is on my last nerve. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this one.